Hey everyone, Geophysicist Stefan Burns here. Breaking news, a new rogue object has been found hurtling through our solar system directly in between Interstellar Object 3I Atlas and Earth. This is C2025 V1 BORISOV, first observed by Gennady Borisov of Crimea, who is the individual that first observed 2I Borisov, the second ever observed interstellar object. Now we have this object directly in between 3I Atlas and Earth that does not have a tail, just like 3I Atlas. There are a couple observations that detected some sort of tail. Most of them, though, show just a coma. Very anomalous, very bizarre, actually closer to the sun than 3I Atlas. We have new imagery of 3I Atlas post-perihelion. It was blasted by a ton of solar storms since its superior conjunction on the 21st through its perihelion, tons of light radiation, and yet even with all that, it is not showing any sort of obvious tail. That's very bizarre. And China has finally released their imagery of 3I Atlas as taken by the Tianwen probe orbiting around Mars back early October. It's a very low resolution image, but they finally released that. So the only group that we're waiting on now is NASA and I guess also the UAE, though I don't know how good those images and observations are going to be. So we have a new rogue object, as of right now classified as a comet, found directly in between 3I Atlas and the Earth. It's going to be performing its perihelion with the sun if it stays on its calculated orbital trajectory in mid-November. And we have new images of Interstellar Object 3I Atlas, which is still quite close into our sun, though it's getting closer and closer to Jupiter day by day. So with that, let's get right into it. We'll begin by looking at our 3D solar system visualization tool as provided by the Sky Live, and we have three different objects plotted here. First and foremost, 3I Atlas. Here's its hyperbolic trajectory cutting through the solar system. Here we have C2025 V1 BORISOV going like this, and then we also have C2025 K1 Atlas. All three of these, from the perspective of Earth, pretty close together in the night sky. So K1 Atlas is an unusual comet. It does have a tail, but it's glowing a golden yellowish color, which is not that common. It can be found right now in the constellation of Leo. And then Borisov is found in the constellation of Virgo right next to 3I Atlas. Today it is the 6th of November, and we can see that if you were here, this is our Earth right there in blue, look how close together these are. Very close together. If you go forward 2 days, we see that they're nearly in alignment, though we do have Borisov above the ecliptic plane. But we get this alignment between these three objects, the Earth, Borisov, and 3I Atlas, in just 2 days, which is a very interesting alignment. But if you go back today, this is where we see it is. It was first picked up around the 3rd of November, I believe, maybe a couple days before that, shooting up from below the ecliptic plane and going over it like this. The perihelion of Borisov is going to be on the 16th of November. Though this object was just discovered, it originally was labeled as GB00810. So if you're doing research for yourself, you may get more hits on it using that label than C2025 V1 BORISOV, at least right now. With time, that will update. But this is coming in from below, going above. Its perihelion, again, will be on the 16th. Let's zoom forward to the 16th to see what things look like then. And that is where we are. So we'll have Borisov close to the sun, but well above the ecliptic plane at that moment in time. And you'll notice here, that is roughly in alignment with the Earth for its perihelion. So as I've been talking about in the past few videos, we've been having tons of solar activity from the sunspots now on the Earth-facing side, which first started blasting tons of solar storms towards 3I Atlas on the 21st of October. And one of the reasons I think that they are blasting all these solar flares is because we have, towards Earth right now, it's because we have A6 Lemon nearby. So here I've added in A6 Lemon, and you'll notice that if we line this up, okay, so we are just going to move this over. Here's the Earth, there's the sun, here's Lemon. The sunspots right now are facing A6 Lemon exactly. So we have that alignment occurring right now. This is actually, let's go back to like the 6th, 5th November. We see that still, we get that alignment, these sunspots in A6 Lemon. Now if we go to the perihelion of this new rogue object, we see that it will also be in alignment with the sun and the Earth. And these sunspots are going to continue on and effectively reach this zone. So this could keep the solar activity high for a long period of time as a result of this. But this is very bizarre to have so many of these objects right now in the inner solar system. And this object right now, Borisov, we don't know what's going to do. It's very likely, and I would place probably my chips on it, just continue along its path and it being a comet. But it is bizarre that we detected it right as it basically showed up in between 3i Atlas and the Earth. And well, there's a lot of people talking, hey, we can't take these interstellar objects just de facto as comets every single time. I 100% agree with that. We have to look at them from new lenses. Doesn't mean it's alien or technology, that we should be open to these ideas and be prepared for them. But one of the big things people were talking about is, okay, well, if it's going to deploy probes, right, they need to get to Earth. Now we have this thing popping up right in between 3i Atlas and Earth. So it's almost like the universe, if this isn't aliens or technology, which is my base case, I don't think we just have evidence of that. But it's like the universe is saying, we're going to run through the simulation all the way so you can finally really get it drilled into that you need to be prepared for this. And then this is actually a test run. This isn't the real deal. That's kind of the impression that I'm getting. And I think the bigger story here is how this is going to affect solar activity. Right now we have a sequence of big solar storms about to hit. We just had a G3 minus geomagnetic storm. So you have minor, moderate, strong, severe, and extreme geomagnetic storms, big fluctuations in Earth's magnetic field. We nearly had a strong storm last night. We're expected to have a strong to even a severe storm in about 12 hours or so. And that sort of activity is likely to continue now, I think, due to the appearance of V1 BORISOV here, very close to Earth within the orbit of Venus. As you can see here, here's Earth's orbit, there's Venus's orbit, even closer in. But what is so bizarre about Borisov is that it also does not have a tail. Only 2 observations of 10 show it having a tail. So let's check it out. And here we have another image of C2025 V1 BORISOV, this new object that has just been found in between 3i Atlas and the Earth. We see it right there. This is a composite of stacked images. So basically he took Borisov and centered it, stacked it each time, which is why the stars are streaked out, because this is actually moving. And that's so you get these streaks for the stars, but you get this clean, crisp image of Borisov. We don't really see a tail. Has a little coma there, right? We're not seeing the nucleus in this, but it does not have a very obvious tail. I mean, maybe you get a little bit this direction, but it's open to interpretation. This is taken by Alpha Rats on Twitter X. I'll link this in the video description. And the magnitude right now for Borisov is in this like 13 zone. So 12, 13, 14 for the apparent magnitude, which isn't that bright. It's expected to get brighter for its perihelion. What is unusual is how bright Interstellar Object 3i Atlas is right now, much brighter than expected. Let's check it out. And here we have our light curve data for 3i Atlas. We see our first observations going back to July. Our orange line is the simple fit for its apparent magnitude, which is its brightness. We see that right here with our y-axis. So every single increase of 1 is a 2.54 times increase in brightness. So this does scale up pretty quick. And we see that it was below this simple fit line there until early September, when it started to jump up in brightness. We detected it also in this period here when Earth-based telescopes were not able to pick up 3i Atlas due to our CCOR1 coronagraph, also our C3 coronagraph from SOHO, and the NASA's Punch constellation saw that it was still brightening, and our latest value right there is 9.8. So there are also 2 other values there that are in this 10 zone. They are uncertain, but this right there is 9.8, much brighter than expected. So that simple fit line right there is showing 11.2, difference 9.8, that is 1.4. Again, 1 is 2.54 times brighter than expected. So 3i Atlas is very bright right now at this time as to what was expected. It displayed a little bit of non-gravitational acceleration, which you would think would be due to off-gassing of some sort, right? Volatiles on the surface heating up, off-gassing, causing it to lose mass and to nudge away from its normal orbital trajectory. But we don't have a tail with 3I Atlas. That is continuously the very odd thing there, which seems to suggest that it's mostly made up of objects that aren't going to volatilize, perhaps rocky metallic minerals and metals, and then also carbon, because we detected a lot of carbon around it. We also detected some water and ice, things of that nature, but there's really not a big tail for 3I Atlas, which is quite bizarre, but it's brighter than expected. At the same time though, it was hit with all these solar storms and tons of light radiation and the solar wind, and it didn't all of a sudden form a tail at its perihelion or afterwards. So a bunch of anomalous characteristics from what we should expect to be anomalous because it's an interstellar object, and now we have this new object, V1 BORISOV, directly in between it and Earth. And here we have our minor planet electronic circular, which is a way for astronomers to gather up their observations on new objects that are found. And this is hosted by the International Astronomical Union. Main thing I want to show you here are the different observations that have been done for V1 BORISOV since it was first detected, and also the reports on its coma and on its tail. So we see here 10 reports on its coma, and the first one by BORISOV, who did not pick up a tail, and he has some pretty good telescopes, by the way. And then we go down, it's only until recently, the 4th and the 5th, that we have 2 observers that notice a tail. But you'll notice here, this is 40 arc seconds right there in terms of size for the coma, and its tail is seen as 50 arc seconds long. Then here we have 23.4 arc seconds, and there it's 72 arc seconds. So this one, a lot of discrepancy between the 2 tail measurements between these 2 individuals, and most people aren't picking up a tail at all. So it seems that right now this new object that's been found does not have a tail, just like Interstellar Object 3I Atlas, and it's also not as bright. 3I Atlas is further away and it's brighter. So if there was to be something, this is just a thought experiment, but there was to be something that was launched from 3I Atlas to head towards Earth, this pretty much fits the description. It's not as bright because it would be smaller, right? It's not as bright, and it doesn't really have a tail. So the oddities keep stacking up with this interstellar story, and now we actually have 2 objects that we are tracking effectively in line as seen in the constellation of Virgo. Let's check it out using Stellarium. Here we have our Stellarium software, which allows us to see the position of planets and stars and comets and more in real time going forward and back using NASA and other ephemeris data. So I have this set for the 7th of November, 6 a.m. for my local time. Here we see the ground surface, we see the sky. I do have the constellations marked out with their labels, and I'm going to turn the atmosphere off because this will help us see these things. So this is atmosphere off, but you will notice that if I go forward in time, now it's sunrise. So we're observing these things in the morning because of this position that they are in relative to the location of the sun. So we're picking these things up right before sunrise. And there are 3 things here that I have marked. So object 1 here marked out by marker 3. This is Interstellar Object 3I Atlas. You notice that it's right now basically in the middle of Virgo, and it passed by Venus just a few days prior. Here is V1 BORISOV. So they are nearly conjunct, very close together in the night sky at this time and date. If we go forward, that would change, but this right here is BORISOV. You can see that. And I load this into Stellarium based off of the data. Here is K1 Atlas, C2025 K1 Atlas, the one that's showing up golden. So if you are an astronomer that is tracking these things, or you want to track these things, Atlas is in Leo, the constellation Leo. These 2 are in Virgo. A lot of activity between these 2 constellations of the Maiden and of the Lion. And here we have another image of C2025 V1 BORISOV. You see the designation here is actually GB00810. That was its first designation that's given. And well, do you see a tail on that thing? I don't see a tail on that. This was taken on the 3rd of November, and you see the same deal here. It was stacked, so we get this object really clearly in focus, and the stars as a result streak out. But there's certainly no tail in this image here. We also have this new imagery of 3i Atlas from China, the Tianwen probe that was orbiting around Mars. This is old news now, but it's new news because it's finally getting released. Let's check that out. And here's what the Chinese observed with 3i Atlas as taken by the Tianwen probe orbiting around Mars back in early October. This was released by the CNSA. And well, I'm personally not too impressed. This is so pixely and low resolution. I don't even know what to think. I mean, we do see maybe a little bit of stuff like going out behind it right there, but this is the coma of 3i Atlas, supposedly. We see it moving through the sky there, but this is such a low resolution, it's really almost meaningless at this point in time. The big update that we're waiting on is the high-rise imagery from the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter by NASA, the latest update on that, because we had a US congresswoman or congressperson basically submit an appeal, like a letter to NASA saying, yo, where's the Atlas imagery? And they said that they're going to release it as soon as the shutdown ends. So all this political stuff, that's what it is. Why don't they just release it right now? Don't ask me, okay? I don't understand these people. But supposedly the moment the US government shutdown ends, we will get that imagery of 3i Atlas from Mars as taken by the high-rise camera, which will allow us to hopefully better characterize its size and maybe its composition. But there are also people saying that the imagery we're going to get from that isn't going to be that significantly different from this imagery right here, which this is like taken by a potato cam. So we really need to get new Hubble imagery and new James Webb imagery of 3i Atlas and some really good telescope observations, but there seems to be a lot of roadblocks right now in terms of actually getting good data on this extremely bizarre, extremely fast interstellar object, which presents effectively a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to learn more about our cosmos at a minimum. And then it provides all these other things that could be useful to us, because we're not alone in this universe and we should be prepared for things perhaps to come in and want to, let's say, set up a colony on Ganymede, as I talked about in one of my videos. So this is the best that we got, though. The Chinese did release their data weeks after the ESA, and now telescope observations have begun again for 3i Atlas. And here's our latest best observation of 3i Atlas that I am aware of, taken by observatory in Spain on the 5th of November. And this is the sunward direction, so the sun is this way. We see the coma of 3i Atlas right there, and maybe it's slightly more elongated in the anti-sunward direction, but it's really hard to tell just based off of this discoloration there. So that's our best look. It's not really any better than the others that we've seen, but we really haven't seen a change in 3i Atlas as it relates to its coma and its tail after passing through that really enhanced solar wind and all those solar storm impacts and its closest approach to the sun with all that solar radiation. So it keeps defying all expectations and all odds. And there were some new calculations done by NASA as it relates to its orbit and any sort of non-gravitational acceleration. And the latest calculations that were done on the 5th as compared to, I think, like the 2nd or the 3rd of November, like right around the perihelion, show that its non-gravitational acceleration actually was quite a bit less than they originally calculated. So it doesn't appear to have really done any major orbital shift, though most comets do display some sort of non-gravitational acceleration from off-gassing of volatiles due to getting close to the sun. 3i Atlas did as well, but nothing significant, or I would say something to be worried about. But I will keep you up to date with everything that is happening in our solar system, what's happening here energetically on Earth with earthquakes, volcanoes, geomagnetic storms, and more. All these comets, planetary alignments, solar activity, space weather. That is my promise to you. I've been your host, Stefan Burns. If you like this shirt that I'm wearing, this is available. This is official channel merch. You can go to my website, www.earthevolution.com/store. We have a whole bunch of holistic wellness products here. These are all herbal tea blends that we make and mix ourselves, my father and I, as well as some merchandise. And so this shirt here comes in white, as you can see what I'm wearing, and also in this midnight blue color. I have both. I think they're both fantastic. This has sacred geometry built right into it. You see the Fibonacci spiral going right over the solar plexus, and the artwork on the back shows the pyramids with Jupiter, Venus, and the moon all in alignment. So fantastic shirt to wear, has really good energy to it. I just like the design and the look of it as well. Comes in small to 4XL in these two colors, as you can see. And there are, of course, many other products on the website as well. So give that a look. It's www.earthevolution.com/store. Check that out. And also a new podcast with myself and Matt Beall just dropped on his channel. It's like 3.5 hours long. We go into everything. 3-eye atlas, Earth's magnetic field and pole flip, consciousness, earthquakes, and so much more. So if you want the full download on everything that I talk about, like long form Joe Rogan style podcast, then you can check that out right there. Thank you all so much for watching. I'm wishing each and every single one of you well. Please take care of yourselves. I'll see you all in the next video.